SCP-117 Object Class Safe. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-117 is to be kept in the small leather pouch it was found in, unless in use or in current study. Any personnel deemed mentally fit may enter the containment cell of the SCP, though if they are suspected to be trying to remove the SCP without permission, they are to be searched, and if that is the case, they are to be reprimanded. The door to the containment cell should remain locked, and a guard posted only when the object is in use. Description: the item appears to be a regular multitool, of unknown make and brand, found in Florida. At first glance, only the normal tools are found: screwdriver, knife, can opener, etc. But if the user is faced with a task, regardless of what tool the subject intends to pull out and use, a tool perfectly fitted for the job will take its place, regardless of spatial quantities that are being broken by the tool. All of the tools always seem to be present though, after the task is completed and the tool closed, unless faced with a task requiring that tool again. The tool cannot be found on the tool again. Addendum: those with level 2 security clearance should see Document 117B. Document 117A: Effects of Usage. After countless uses and testing with the SCP, it has been discovered to cause harm, and possibly death to the user by means of absorbing iron, copper, calcium and zinc from the user's body as long as the user is touching the device. Gloves seem to have no curbing effect on this, and the rate of absorption seems to depend on the tools used, created by SCP-117. It is advised that only Class D personnel are used in conjunction with this SCP, to prevent death or injury of researchers. Document 117B. Usage Log of SCP-17. Situation tool produced by SCP. A loose screw on a metal plate. Screwdriver, though not the standard screwdriver. A nail barely in piece of timber. Standard hammer. A piece of timber with proposed cut lines drawn. An electric saw, which needed no outside power source. A piece of bulletproof glass. An unknown laser cutting tool, which needed no outside power source. SCP: a bloodied combat knife. An agent with a broken bone. A small item with a trigger, which when pulled emitted an odd radiation, instantly healing the injury. Class D personnel fit for execution. Communication needed with SCP-363. A non-shuffle deck of playing cards. A mid-sized mechanical shuffler. Class D personnel with terminal cancer. Item similar to 6th test. A perfectly healthy Caucasian human male with no criminal record. A perfectly healthy Hispanic human male with no criminal record. SCP-138. A metal plate with the phrase, "That's rough, buddy," carved into it. A silver dinner fork in perfect condition. No tools could be found on the SCP. A screwdriver. A dirty window. A nozzle that sprayed a mixture of soap and water that completely cleaned the window. An uncharged iPod. The iPod end of the charging cord, which needed no outside power source. A blank sheet of standard computer paper. A pen filled with seemingly infinite supply of black ink. A Samsung cellular phone. A small device that when attached to the phone increased signal strength by approximately 250%. A paperback copy of How to Survive When Reality Doesn't. A functioning lighter. A hard copy of A Chronicle of the Davis, non-anomalous, a functioning lighter. A hardcover copy of A Chronicle of the Davis, anomalous, a functioning flamethrower, item burned with no complications. A hardcover copy of Chronicle of the Davis, non-anomalous, but received from the Wanderer's Library. An anti-book lice spray. Document 117G. Developments concerning SCP-117. After exposing the SCP to an array of different items and people, it appears that the object may very well be sentient to some degree. Because of this, we must consider the fact that SCP is suitable to telepathy and must not come into contact with SCPs with known telepathic powers. Signed, Dr. Kleiman. The above was a transcript of the personal notes of Dr. Kleiman, who seems to have taken a harmless interest in the object. His testing with other SCPs is suspended as of 9/16/2001. Note: 117-1. Testing is suggested for SCP-882 and is under consideration by Dr. Kleiman. Note 117-2. Further biological testing is halted by Dr. Kleiman after Incident 1174A. The SCP is still fit to be used for any repairs around the facilities, as long as the SCP is followed by one or more armed guards briefed on proper use of the SCP. Note 1174. After much consideration, I must deny testing of SCP-117 with SCP-882. The risk of damaging 882 is simply too great to overlook. Signed, Dr. Kleiman. Note 11726. After Incident 1173F, I'm forced to put a stop to all testing of SCP-117 in conjunction with other SCPs. The risk of a total loss of containment is far too great. All biological testing is to be halted until a later date, as the results so far have proven varying, and there is a limit of Class D staff available for my research. Dr. Kleiman. Note 11727. Biological testing resumed by Dr. Kleiman with mixed results. Testing of SCP-117 with other SCPs under reconsideration by the O5, though it seems unlikely further testing will occur. Note 11728. Testing is suggested for SCP-68.